Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Citizens Corner. Well, today let me go ahead and start by thanking everyone who's participated, and let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first question I have here is from Gary Lee. He said, so would a delay in the gimbal aim help? Guns have to take time to align with the cursor. The bigger the gun, the more the time needed. Well, that's actually definitely a factor. The one-to-one instant aiming, put your cursor there, the guns move as fast as your cursor moves, is actually part of the problem, definitely. I have advocated that different weapons that have different weights, different sizes, should have different slew rates. Part of the reason is also creates a situation where you have choice. Maybe you want to choose a smaller weapon of a particular type because the slew rate's faster. That's part of the solution, but it needs more than just that. But I definitely agree. That's definitely something that needs to be looked at. Larry A. states, I agree on not joining an organization with 1K members that you'll never really know or trust. Yeah, I can understand that. I really can. Having come from EVE, I can tell you that, anyone who's played EVE knows there's a lot of espionage. There's a lot of things that go on, scams and whatever. In Star Citizen, as you know, you can join multiple organizations. You can join some in secret. So with a large organization, I feel that to a degree you do open yourself up to some vulnerability, at least more than a small organization does. Not only because it's hard to track everybody, but you do make yourself a much larger target. I think a smaller organization, or at least most of them, would probably be ignored by a lot of these espionage types because they're just not, the payoff wouldn't be worth the reward to them. The additional pylon states, keep in mind that in the persistent universe, people will have to spend money to fire ballistic weapons. Oh, absolutely. I've always considered that to be a balancing factor. The amount of ammo, the cost, but at the same time, that could be said with missiles too. I think what you're referring to is the fact that I talked about how I'm not a fan of the ballistics penetration. And you're saying, well, it gets that advantage, but it is something you have to spend money on. And I get where you're going with that. I do. My concern is for ships, particularly like the Banu Defender and other ships that fall into that kind of category, where they're not really armored at all. Let's use like an M50, for example, as well. These ships are going to be just ripped to shreds through their shields and not have much chance to survive whatsoever. I really think that, once again, in my personal opinion, and that's all it is, that energy weapons need to be what takes down the shields. Physical weapons should be what takes down the hull. And I think when you create a situation where you have a defense mechanic and you create a way to bypass that mechanic, it will become the meta. And if something becomes a meta, I can understand people having a preference, but eventually if the meta, well, what is a meta? Everyone basically starts using the same weapons. Everyone starts using the same loadouts because that's what's proven to be the most effective. In a sense, taking away choice or selection really out of the hands of the player. There should be advantages and disadvantages to everything. Cost definitely is a disadvantage. I just don't think it's a big enough of one to matter. Unless bullets are like $1 million a bullet, then it matters. Minion Soldier states, that scene at 8:41 with the other moon rising was my favorite part. Yeah, you're referring to the music part. I tell you what, I think, well, let's look at Star Wars. Do you think that Star Wars would be nearly as epic if they had the, I don't know, let's just say the scene where they're on the turrets in the Millennium Falcon, and that epic scene, if they replaced that song with the herp-a-derp song, herp derp derpity derp derp. No, it wouldn't. I mean, it's one of those things that the music sets the mood. Now, personally speaking, I'm a fan of instrumental music. That's my favorite kind of music across the board. Always has been. I think, to me, it has more mental visualization, more connectivity to emotion. I've been a fan of it since forever. Really been a fan of it when as a kid watching Star Wars and seeing how Pedro Camacho is not only he's implementing a very strong sense of mood and atmosphere, but he's also done homages to some of my more favorite sci-fi, such as The Last Starfighter and other things like that. In fact, I had messaged him once on Twitter, and I said to him, this sounds a little bit like The Last Starfighter. And he says, yes, actually, he sent me a message back, and he said that that's where he got his inspiration from, and that was one of his favorite sci-fi movies as well. So, yeah, I really respect the way he's approaching things. I hope he can continue to create music that has all sorts of different mood ranges. It'll really add a lot to the game. Brandon asks, when do you think they will add more servers? I'm in LA and sit around 100 ping, and I'm getting a bit jealous of all these 30 pings, mostly because it limits the weapons I can use to their full potential. Keep up the great work. Well, thanks, for starters, for the great work comment. Well, as far as when, I don't know. I don't think anyone does. I do agree they need to do something about having servers towards the West Coast. I think if they were to put a server in Nevada or something like that, that it would be very helpful. But I don't know if it's because they're trying not to divide their community so much right now. Like right now, if you join the server, you choose like USA, like Australia, and Europe. I don't know if it's because if they were set up another server right now, that it would be like USA 2, and they'll end up officially having not only country servers, so to speak, country nodes, but within that country having multiple nodes and splitting their server base up even more. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do this. I'm not exactly sure. I play Elder Scrolls Online, and they only have a European and a North American server that you join. And I assume that within that, it routes you to different servers. They're technically speaking part of the same world. I don't know their infrastructure, but it's possible they don't have it set up yet to do it the right way. And as for now, they just had to pick a location, and they geographically picked what may have the most supporters. Because if you think about it, we have one studio in Austin, another one in California. I was thinking that I think what they have is like in Virginia, which I wouldn't have expected. I would have expected something like Nevada. It would have made the most sense to me. But maybe they chose that location because that's where the company has the servers, or maybe that's where the largest demographic of players they have come from. I'm not sure why they chose it. Maybe they'll explain that sometime. Another message from Brandon. I look at the Polaris as the assassin class capital ship. High damage, high mobility. People are worried about not liking the torpedoes, but it has quite a few guns and turrets that I'll be filling mostly with AI. Yeah, I kind of do look at it as the assassin class. It's the fastest capital. It has just enough carrying capacity to, bring along a little bit of specialization for purpose and function. And what I'm curious about with the ship is, obviously, if you get missions with it, you have to make enough money on a mission to justify taking it out. So with a ship like this, would you be doing missions for long-term patrols? Like, you'll be patrolling a sector of space for, I don't know, let's say 4 hours, real life 4 hours, and then dealing with whatever comes up, and then they pay you X amount of money, and it's got to be enough to cover your fuel, potential weapon, torpedoes or stuff you may have to use, crew costs, all of it. So I would assume that if they implement this right, that eventually you would be able to take those large ships out on contracted missions and still make a profit. Now, when the game starts, I don't plan on taking this thing out of the hangar. I plan on using things like my Freelancer Max and whatever to do cargo runs to get enough of a base built up in cash. Then I'll jump into like this Hull C and then make money with that, and eventually get enough of a purse built up that I'll go ahead and start taking out the Polaris. The Polaris I look at mostly, from my perspective, as a fleet or group event ship. I would want to man it with players as much as possible, because I'd rather split the profits with other people as opposed to NPCs. Adarex79 states, I would think you would need a Banu transponder code to avoid Vandal and other attacks for the reason mentioned. Sounds like something to invest in. You know, you're right, and I hadn't considered that. You know, the Banu probably do have special codes that they transmit to the Vandal to recognize their status. You know, and that would be a very interesting gameplay. Think of it this way: you need to get through Vandal space, and you don't have a merchantman, but you're part of the you're doing reconnaissance as a contract or whatever, or for the UEE or whatever, and you have to go and steal a code from a Banu merchant so that you can have the code for your ship to travel through space without, because first thing they're going to do is at long range they're going to see you, and they're going to transmit to you, request the code. If you don't have the code, I imagine the Vandal will fly over and attack you. Before they're in visual range, you may be able to spoof what your ship is. So if you had the right code and he had the ability to spoof, then you may be able to go ahead and do that spy mission. So yeah, there's a real possibility there for some interesting gameplay if done right. I like that. It's a great idea. I have to give you props on that. Exhami states, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. I never know how to pronounce that one. I'm really hyped for 3.0, but it feels weird to me that they are introducing the economy, but not opening up ship stores like Astro Armada. Marketing is greater than gameplay. I doubt I'd even be able to spend Alpha UEC on a Grey Cat. Yeah, I do hope they open up ship stores and things like that to allow players to at least buy baseline ships. For example, a Base Hornet or a Cutlass Black. If they're worried about their ship sales on their specialty ships, then they could at least open up the baselines. Base Connie, base this, base that. And this way they could still sell the more advanced versions on the store, and people could be like, I really like the Connie. I bought one in the Persistent Universe testing area, and I'd like to start with that ship. And then they'll buy that on the store. It's a little bit of an advertisement to a degree. Get your hands on it. And then they say, hey, I can upgrade for another $25, $30 into this, But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to be buying or allowed to buy in 3.0. I would hope that we wouldn't be forced to continue to use Rec as a means of renting ships. Some people just don't care for Arena Commander. I'm one of them. I'm a subscriber, so I have like 400, 500,000 Recs sitting, in my bar that I don't need because I have so many ships and parts that, for the most part, it's rare that I need to rent anything. I just swap something off another ship. But for a lot of people, Rec is their only way. They get started with an Aurora, and then they have to do Vandal Swarm all day or PvP or whatever to rent something better, and then log into the Persistent Universe and fly with that. It'd be nicer to see them be able to go ahead and accomplish that in the PU without being subjected to a game mode that they may not like. Brian Fury states, I don't think you have to worry about the Banu Defender shields. It's faster and has better guns than the rest. Most OP ship I've seen in a long while. I don't know about that. to be honest with you. I don't think it's very OP at all. It was more of a problem when you couldn't put fixed weapons on it, because it basically locked out everybody who didn't use mouse IM mode to fly with it. Its profile seems kind of big. Big profile, lack of armor, ballistics penetration. It seems like a vulnerable target to me. What if there's anything I do have concerns about? And they say they want to make this a long-range sniper ship. Once again, sniper, terms I've never heard in a flight game, like DPS and time on target, all these things like that. These are things that you typically don't focus on in a flight game, and these things you hear about them in an FPS, but that's because they're in large respects throwing a lot of FPS mechanics into the flight mix, and it's going to cause issues. But the guns that are coming with the Banu Defender, they're supposed to be these new kind of rail guns, or something along these tachyon beams or whatever. Shoots at a projectile, from what I'm understanding, like at the speed of light. Basically, effectively creating a hit scan weapon. Now, if this is true, from my understanding, if this is implemented, and hit scan weapons are basically brought into the game, I cannot even begin to describe what a bad idea that is when you have a system like interactive mode. Because you won't even have to lead the target anymore. Anything that's traveling at the speed of light, if you can see it, you're going to hit it. You don't need to lead. You just put your cursor directly over the target, and it's hit. Even what minimal work you had to do to lead the target is gone. You just put your cursor directly over what you're seeing, anywhere you want to see. You want to shoot his engine? Put your cursor right on his engine. It's instantaneous. It's perfect every time. Yeah, hit scan weapons with the system they got implemented, that's going to be a nightmare for everyone. I'll call it right now. There'll be problems with it, because when you have a FPS mechanic, then you add hit scan weapons. I play Warframe. Okay, I know what hit scan weapons are. I know the difference between that and ammo weapons. You can feel the difference in the game quite a bit. Weapons with delay, like a Boltor, which shoots a physical projectile, versus any other of my machine guns, which are basically hit scan. There's a huge difference in how you have to play with them. And yeah, I shouldn't be comparing FPS weapons in a flight game once again. All right, and finally, one from John Rouse. We like Lightning. Come on, lighten up, buddy. Exactly. Come on, Lightning. Stop being upset about the people not liking you. No, just kidding. No, we like you. A little. Occasionally. You're important to the show. keep participating. Everyone who likes Lightning, leave a comment down below. And anyway, guys, we'll catch you next time. Feel free to always ask more questions. I'll give you the best answers I can. At least honest ones about how I feel about things. I'm not always going to be right, but I'm going to try to always be honest about how I feel about things. So, all right, guys. Have a good one. Catch you next time.